state plan. And at the end of that meeting, the following statement was authorized. It will be sent to you in the form of a letter, but I would like to read it into the record this evening. Monmouth County Planning Board appreciates the opportunity to comment on the proposed state strategic plan, New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan. We think that this version of the plan is an improvement from the previous iterations of past plans because it is concise, allows more flexibility, and acknowledges the importance of regional planning. The board offers the following comments that we believe will strengthen the plan even further. New wording is needed to emphasize the County Planning Board's role in the process. It is important that wording get inserted in the state strategic plan that indicates that those county planning boards who desire to are encouraged and authorized to take a major role in the state strategic planning process. The Monmouth County Planning Board wants to be an active participant in the planning process to ensure that Monmouth's regional strategic plan that will be developed as part of this undertaking becomes a component of the overall state strategic plan. The Planning Board is willing to do the necessary mapping, build on existing regional and county plans and initiatives, and to do the necessary outreach work to other county departments, municipalities, and other stakeholders. Counties should have the opportunity to participate in the development of the scorecard. The scorecard is the key instrument that will be used to allocate state funding. Since the counties in our state are so diverse, it is necessary that all counties have a chance to be part of the discussions to arrive at a scorecard and have the ability to comment on the scorecard before it is finalized. This will ensure that an equitable scorecard is created that provides each county with opportunities to receive funding for appropriate and needed projects. We are concerned that if the scorecard is not set up fairly, funding might be directed to cities and the denser northern counties, leaving the other areas of the state with serious infrastructure and other problems. Goals, objectives, and strategies should be developed for those portions of the state that are neither priority growth areas or preservation areas. Right now, the state strategic plan has goals, objectives, and strategies to develop priority growth areas and to preserve and enhance critical state resources. The plan is currently silent on how to address the remaining areas of the state. However, the State Planning Commission's draft State Strategic Plan Advance Notice of Rules Priority Investment Area criteria defines these areas as either alternate growth investment areas or limited growth investment areas and offers a very limited discussion about these areas. Additional goals and policies should be added to the State Strategic Plan to provide guidance for these areas. It is unclear about if and how these areas will qualify for funding. Counties work on regional strategic plans as part of the state planning process should be folded into the regional plan for sustainable development. A regional plan for sustainable development plan is underway for the 13 counties, including Monmouth, that are members of the North Jersey Transportation Authority region. We are asking that the State Planning Commission and Office of Planning Advocacy advocate for the work that these counties are doing, are undertaking as part of the state strategic plan process, and the regional plan for sustainable development initiative be designed in a way that the products are compatible with and easily and seamlessly incorporated into one another. This recommendation supports the state strategic plan's message that, quote, vertical coordination is imperative for success, unquote. Finally, a glossary would be a helpful addition to the plan. A glossary defining key terms in the state strategic plan would help the general public to better understand the concepts described in the plan. If you have any questions about the comments or would like to discuss them further, please contact Assistant Planning Director Bonnie Goldschlag for our office, and we have the contact information included.
Thank you very much, Vince. Thanks.
Leslie Conrad and then Carol Balmer is after Leslie.
I'm a citizen of New Jersey, and I'm just here by myself, and I'm not a polished speaker, so you have to forgive me. But I've heard about this, looked at it a little bit, and listened to all the people's comments here. You say that this agenda was first brought forth in 1920, and now all of a sudden they're bringing this thing forward. Maybe we should have let it be gone in the 1940s, but it's here again. And the first thing I have to say is there seems to be a heavy emphasis on environmentalism. And my fear is that environmentalist movement has been taken over by extreme radical elements of this political spectrum. And these radical environmentalists are not interested in preserving environment. They're interested in destroying the free enterprise system. And
that's right.
anything that they do is ultimately going to destroy jobs in New Jersey. And knowing that New Jersey is number 50 on the lowest business accessible welcoming state in the union is just going to make it even worse. As far as planning of the city or usage, I strongly believe that it is best done by local governments, not by out-of-state or people in Trenton, some bureaucrat who we have no idea, who has no, doesn't live in my town, and doesn't know what it's like, and that scares me. I'm also afraid that this opens up. Now, everybody must be aware of the event that happened in Connecticut, where a city took over people's homes, threw them out, destroyed their homes, turned it over to a private developer. The developer said, no, we ain't got the money, and today that field is a vacant lot. I'm afraid that this type of provision will allow the government to take people's homes away because they don't see fit or they feel they can do better with it. That's one of my problems. Also, it seems to be, since we're going to have people, and let me tell you something, folks, I consider the state legislatures, and forgive me for saying this, are nothing but a bunch of pimps. And if we allow them to lead, and together with these special interest groups, they're going to crush us. They're going to crush us like a bug, and they don't give a damn about it. Another thing, I heard the gentleman over here say is a constitutional right to affordable housing. I'd like to ask that gentleman.
Where?
What article of the Constitution?
Which country?
Huh?
What country?
Secondly, even if you did, what about the Mount Holly decision? You said earlier that the cities and municipalities will decide on the amount of affordable housing or low-income housing. Mount Holly decision is going to override anything the municipality or the state thinks they're going to do. Also, the woman talked about solar panels. I have to laugh. Solyndra went out of business.
Yep.
Top it off, there are people, every time I speak to somebody who installs solar panels, they tell me that it'll take years and years to get your money back before you may start making money off or saving money on your electrical bill. The solar panel stupidity is a dead herring. It's just made by environmentalists.
Amen.
Lastly, I'd just like to say that this idea, from what I've gathered from this gentleman, Peter, I believe his name is, Peter? Peter. When he's saying, I get the idea that you're going to take people and put them away in small little areas. Hubs. Or silos.
Transit villages.
What happens if I have a job in, say, Allentown, and I live in New Jersey, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and there's no link going there? What am I going to do? Nothing? That's my job? What happens also, if you remember previous history, the spread of disease in small local communities during the Middle Ages, because people crowded together and disease just ran rampant through the towns and villages and killed a third of the population of Europe. Is that what we're going to put ourselves up to also? Again? I don't know. I hope not. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Followed by Lucy Vandenberg.
Hi,
Carol, yes.
Carol Balmer. I live in Homedale. At one time I was a representative from our township to the State Development Redevelopment Plan. At that time we had planning area 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There was some kind of consistency and...
Does she need the microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will charge you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. At one time I was representative from our town to the State Development Redevelopment Plan when this all started back in the 90s, I believe it was, and maybe even late 80s. And at that time we had planning area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The intent, as I understood the state plan at that time, was to gear development towards areas that had infrastructure. And the premise at that time was that the more you expand infrastructure, the more taxes the taxpayer is going to have to pay for it. And yes, townships, like this gentleman was just speaking about, hubs like Jersey City or Elizabeth or any highly populated area, have infrastructure to handle that area and the population. So you're not putting them in a tenement, or you're not putting them in a little tiny box and just leaving them there. The infrastructure is there to support them. And the State Development Redevelopment Plan way back then was to gear populations and growth to where the infrastructure already existed. When now expanding infrastructure to other areas can be very expensive to everybody, including the taxpayers, okay? My problem with the state plan, as I see it right now, is it's going away from its original intent to gear development to where services now exist. It creates more urban sprawl. And that urban sprawl, unfortunately, this gentleman doesn't agree with me, but unfortunately, I think our environment is our best key to the economic recovery in this state. Without clean air, without clean water, nobody wants to build here. You have countries all over the world that do not have clean water, do not have clean air. Mostly clean water is their concern. People do not invest there. They may invest in oil wells offshore, but they don't invest in the people or the country or the resources or the research and development because they do not have the resources to sustain that development. And that's what it should be about, sustainability.
Sustainable development.
And I'm going to go back again to the Handheld issue at hand, which I feel is statewide, and that's the Manasquan River Reservoir has been exempt from sewer service extension areas. Our DEP is forcing sewers down our throats. I was the one that voted for the sole source sewer line from Lucent Laboratory facility. It was only for that facility. It was not for the 400 surrounding acreage. It was not for PNC Bank. It was not for the rest of the watershed, which would require more infrastructure, more runoff, more sedimentation to a reservoir. In the year 2020, we're going to have a water situation in the state. We do not have enough sustainable quality and quantity drinking water in the state. For the state to be short-sighted about our watersheds and our resources that feed those watersheds is an enormous mistake that we'll be paying, our children and our grandchildren will be paying for. And it has nothing to do with being economic recovery. It has to do with long-term livability in New Jersey. Thank you.
Maybe this would be the mic back there. John, comments? Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. But
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present comments on the draft state strategic plan. I'm Lucy Vandenberg, the Executive Director of Plan Smart New Jersey, a statewide independent nonprofit planning and research organization with over 40 years commitment to strengthening communities and improving people's lives through the advancement of sound land use planning and regional cooperation. I am here tonight in support of the state strategic plan and in support of regional planning in New Jersey generally. Why is regional planning important? Rather than constricting our freedom of choice as citizens, planning expands our freedom of choice. Through good planning, we can achieve a brighter future than we could without it. Through sound planning, we can attract new businesses and workers to New Jersey. We can create communities that are attractive to the workforce, communities that provide private sector housing near jobs, so that families can spend more time at home and less time in traffic. Rather than being forced to sit in ever more unpredictable traffic jams, we can have transportation options that include taking the train or bus, riding a bike, or walking. Any comments? I'm not going to take that against my time when people are talking. Thank you. Rather than polluted air and water, we can achieve better air and water quality through sound planning, development, and investment decisions. Rather than development of all our remaining open spaces, we can strategically preserve open space and farmland while developing our centers. Rather than building only single-family homes on large lots, we can have a variety of housing choices near our work that suit our lifestyles and our budgets. Planning is about creating choices and opportunity. As a lifelong resident of New Jersey, I understand the importance of strong, connected communities, a variety of housing options, and a functional transportation system. I grew up in a traditional walkable town in New Jersey with local shops and a train station that provides quick access to New York City. Growing up, my family could drive, but they could also walk to town or take the train. Children had the independence made possible by walkable, compact, safe communities. Our community had housing affordable to very well-off families and housing affordable to those with limited incomes. This diversity of incomes and backgrounds served to strengthen, not weaken, our community. We should invest in places like these with existing infrastructure, and we should support job creation in our urban and town centers. If we were to stop investment in infrastructure and town planning, our roads would crumble, become so congested that they're no longer functional, and our air quality would degrade, harming human health. People would be forced to live ever farther from work and spend less and less time with their families. This is not the future we should strive toward. With strategic infrastructure investment, we can make an efficient use of limited government resources while maximizing private sector investment. We can support business formation and expansion, foster innovation, and create compact, livable, and diverse communities.
Come on, give us a break with this.
She has to talk just like everybody else.
Come
Let
on.
her speak. She let everybody else.
We listen to you.
You should shut up and listen to everybody else. Folks, you gotta be quiet when somebody else is speaking, okay? Everybody will get a chance.
I'll wrap up. These are the goals that the state strategic plan also seeks to achieve.
Talking to me, sir?
The state plan recognizes
Looking at me and using that tone of voice,
Ma'am, we can't have this.
Wait a minute, he started over
I know.
here. He attacked her.
Listen,
He attacked her.
okay, whoever attacked you, please, let's quiet and let Lucy finish.
The state plan recognizes the key role that the economy has to play in planning. It introduces the concept of industry clusters for New Jersey, which we have long advocated and has served as a national model elsewhere. The plan proposes a criteria-based system to identify where growth should occur and where conservation should take place. We support this process and encourage the state to be transparent about where it encourages growth and seeks to support natural resource conservation. The plan calls for a long-term funding source for open space preservation. As one of the most densely populated states of the nation, this priority is essential to our continued high quality of life. These are provisions that are important to New Jersey's future. Without a strong state plan, growth will occur haphazardly, limiting freedoms for our citizens. We thank you for your leadership in these areas and for your thoughtful inclusion of these principles. Thank you for allowing me to finish.
Thank you, Lucy.
John Cummings and then Paul Meeks. After that.
Folks, one thing. Let's stop right here and start from scratch. We can't have the murmuring when folks are talking. The passion is good, but the interruptions are bad. We're trying to make this a constructive meeting. You're going to have a diversity of opinions. That's the world go around. We have to respect each other and let everybody speak as they are letting you speak.
My name's John Cummins. I'm from Atlantic Highlands. I was looking at the plan, thinking about economic development. Was just a little bit curious. We spent lots of money on planning. We spent lots of money on regulation. We've got lots of money and lots of nonprofit groups trying to steer things. We've got lots of money going to developers. We've got lots of money coming out of taxpayers' pockets. And I'm really not seeing the economic growth. I was wondering, why don't we slow down the spending on planning by some central body that's spending no business whatsoever telling the taxpayers how they should spend their money, what they should do. It's not their job. Show me in the Constitution where it says, show me in the Constitution where it says the state will tell the people what to do. I didn't see that. I read the state constitution. I can't see the state running things. I beg your pardon, but get off our back. We're spending money on education using state ideas, and it's not working. The state idea of education is not the educators in the classroom's idea of education.
John, please stick to the plan, okay?
Okay?
Okay.
You guys are messing up by planning economic development. It's going to do the same thing it does when you plan education. You're going to steer the money. The money's going to go where you tell it to go. And we're going to get what we get.
We're not stakeholders.
We're not happy about that. Why don't you let us spend our money where it needs to be spent for us to get what we need, so we can have our clean water, so we can have our clean streets, so we can get our streets fixed. I mean, if you guys can help, that would be great. But telling us what to do isn't help. We know what to do. We're people. I mean, is anybody else a human being in this room? Does anybody else know what they need? Know what they want? You need somebody to plan it for you? I mean, it's a great idea, but, well, maybe it's not such a great idea. I don't know. Where did this idea come from anyway? Was it from a communist nation that wanted to have America be just like them? I think that's where it comes from. Check it out.
Followed by Bob Lessick. Sorry if I'm butchering that.
Sorry, Dan, who's the first?
Paul Gleitz.
Thank you. My name is Paul Gleitz. I'm the Central New Jersey representative of the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association. I'm also a practicing professional planner in the state of New Jersey. And on behalf of the New Jersey chapter of the APA, I'd like to offer some comments. Again, to echo some other comments, we are very delighted the administration has taken on the state planning process. It's a process that, like dormant for way too long. It's very important to the future development of the state, and we're glad to see this process started up again. At the same time, we believe that, as we mentioned in October, that this is really a plan for a plan. The guiding principles, they outline a good approach to a future planning process, but we still think there's a lot more work to be done in terms of balancing economic development goals and in the context of the broad statutory mandates of the State Planning Act. So we think at this time it would be premature to adopt the plan in its current form, and we think that there's a lot more input that needs to be gathered from around the state. We believe that the strength and assets assessment is well done and focused. However, additional review and input from the public may reveal additional assets. We believe that this state strategic plan process has not received the same level of local review and based on the original project acceptance process. While we're not advocating a resuscitation of that prior process, we do believe that there's a lot more input that should come from the local level. And we also believe that that input should be that the counties, and we're glad to see there's some emphasis on the county and regional planning, but we think the counties can step up and have a much bigger role in this process, like they were envisioned in the cross-section process, but that was never really realized. And this plan does warrant a very high level of public scrutiny. You're hearing it tonight, but we think that all sides should be heard from throughout the entire community. We also think we need to have more public participation processes, summaries of work products, comment opportunities, all these things shed better sunlight into the entire process. And again, we think that there's a huge shift in the framework of the state planning process. So we think if there's such a large shift in this process, we really should have the ability to have more comment and provide more input into this process. And let's see here, the changing realities assessment, while it is accurate, it's not necessarily a reason to abandon or shortcut a comprehensive state plan process. We agree with the findings of that process, but it doesn't mean we should just abandon a comprehensive state planning process. We understand you have some timeline constraints, but again, we think maybe this should be an opportunity to identify a better process moving forward. Regarding farm-state values identified in the plan are excellent goals for these growth investment areas. But again, the trick's going to be how do we effectively identify these growth investment areas? The guiding principles and goals are very laudable, but they really need to be linked to places. They need to be linked to incentives, and they need to be linked to state support. There needs to be some predictability. If I'm a property owner, if I'm a developer, if I'm a municipality, I don't want to have some sort of checklist to see maybe I qualify as a growth area or a non-growth area or a preservation area. We understand the need to move away from a state plan map that never got adopted, that had its problems. But at the end of the day, if you want predictability, if you want people to understand the process, there has to be some way to identify those. We think property taxes remain a key issue. Only in New Jersey are school children screamed about at planning board meetings. There needs to be a real way to kind of rethink. We know the governor's been working on this issue. We need to have refocused effect on this issue. As long as we have a property tax issue, we have an ability to do sound land use planning, because we're always going to be trying to minimize school-age children, and we're always going to be trying to maximize short-term rateable growth. So we think there's no mention of affordable housing in the plan. It's at your risk. COA has gone away as a process, but the Mount Laurel decision still stands. The Supreme Court is still around, and you're going to need to provide additional tools for municipalities to deal with that issue.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sir, here. And Suzanne, she is about to vote.
I have no position or credentials whatsoever other than the fact that I'm a lifelong New Jersey resident, property owner, taxpayer, and I have lived in this state long enough to see a lot of changes take place, some of them good, some of them not so good. I have managed to get through this New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan. I won't claim to understand everything that's in here, but I will make some comments on it. The plan is obviously ambiguous. It's very, very strong on flowery language and inferred benefits, and very short on specifics as to how the plan will deal with various problems in New Jersey. In short, it appeals to me as a sales tool for centralized planning for the state. We have a lot of experience with centralized planning in New Jersey. We can take a look at some of our major cities which have been experimenting with centralized planning for generations. Patterson, Elizabeth, Perth Amboy, Camden, Trenton come to mind. I don't think we can point to those cities with and show much success in centralized planning in their environments. Downtowns that are unworkable because they're unsafe, parking that is inadequate, population that exceeds the ability of the city to deal with them, to educate them. This is a decidedly un-American approach to handling our problems. We have done it. We have done it throughout our history with individual effort, entrepreneurial spirit, and a penchant for solving problems by approaching it from different directions. We have ample evidence in our own state and in our national government of the failure of centralized planning projects. New Jersey spends 10 times the national average to build or repair 1 mile of road. We pay for it. New Jersey has some of the highest cost per student of education in the United States, and our test scores are dropping annually. The town I come from, Monmouth Township, was at one time, when my son attended school there, considered to be one of the premier education towns in Middlesex County. It does not enjoy that anymore. However, we spend roughly twice to 2.5 times what we spent on education when my son was in the school system. There is a mention in the plan of the need to repurpose and redevelop existing developed properties. This, to me, gives the state or even the county the ability to do with properties what they see as being appropriate. This degrades personal property rights. We already have property rights under stress in this state from abusive municipal bonding issues, where the taxpayer property owner is the payer of last resort in the event of default. Your property rights have been diminished because the courts can force you to pay for what your elected officials have chosen to borrow under bond. There's no doubt we need some rules, some regulations, and we do need some concept of how we want our state to progress. This does not seem to provide any of those things, and it leaves a lot of things open-ended and a tremendous opportunity for abuse.
That's right. Thank you. Yes, very true.
And then Tony DeVici is up next.
Good evening, I'm Suzanne Ishii. I am the chair of the Board of Arts-Guild Community at Rutgers University. I'm going to read a letter for the record, which we will be submitting in full to the OPA. I will read a portion of the letter, and in addition to this letter, there are 9 recommendations of specific language which we strongly encourage the OPA to consider